I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria, and my odd take is product development, as it's taught in like the Western world, does not apply to the Nigerian market. We need African specific product courses. Most of what you learn does not really apply, and you can speak to a bit of privilege, yes, and how the market works. So it's not like one is good or one is bad. It's just the approach to it and understanding that you don't have as much privilege or leverage as if you're in other markets.
Hello and welcome to another episode of One Night in Product Hot Takes Edition, where I speak to one person about one thing, get straight to the point, and find out what's on their mind. Now, if you've got something on your mind, why not head over to onenightinproduct.com/hot, where you can find a slot, book a time, we can have a chat, and we can share what you've got on your mind with the world. But in any case, do remember to head over to onenightinproduct.com, where you can find all my old episodes, subscribe to the podcast on your favourite podcast app, find us on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and all those other things that the cool kids doing these days. Anyway, enough of me. Let's get straight to Boluwaji Alepaye's Hot Take. So I see in front of me a very beige and brown wood-panelled room with some undescribable objects on a shelf above me, but also a person in front of those looking slightly confused at my introduction, but hopefully we'll get there in the end. So I'm going to ask you now, throw over to you and say, who are you, where are you based, what do you do, and most importantly, what's your hot take?
Yeah, hi, I'm Boluwaji Alepaye. I build products for Moniepoint. I'm a product manager at Moniepoint. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria. And my odd take is product development, as it's taught in like the Western world, does not apply to the Nigerian market. I think we need African specific product courses. And I'll explain that later in the call on how most of what you learn because most of the product courses you learn are like from Americans and Brits, and it doesn't really apply.
All right, so there could be a number of ways to take this, and of course, there's two ways to look at it. Like if you say that the product education that's taught by sort of Brits and Americans and people like me, like you sit there and say, well, either they're right and Nigeria is wrong, or Nigeria is right and they're wrong, or there's somewhere in between, right? So, like, how do you see some of the main differences, I guess, before we start worrying about, like, who's right or wrong? Like, what are some of the things that you think don't apply?
I think, firstly, the approach to product and how you look at product. For example, you learn products management from product school and the rest of them, and you get things like customer acquisition cost, and customer retention, and churn rates. And while those metrics are important, I think there's no metric more important than revenue in African markets. That means in a way, it takes away from and you can speak to a bit of privilege, yes, and how the market works. But when you live in the market where people can pay more in views and with money, how then do you keep the company afloat? So I think from the first day, your job as a product manager in Africa is how do you make money from those products? Because you don't have, look at how the fundraising works, for example. You don't have $200 million, $300 million checks to go for a long year without like profitability. Revenue is important from the first day. I think so that way, if revenue is important from the first day, it takes away some of the fancy parts of product management that the rest of the world does. Yes. So that's why I see it is very different. So it's not like one is good or one is bad. It's just the approach to it and understanding that you don't have as much privilege or leverage as if you're in other markets.
Now, there's an interesting thing that I've been thinking about, and whilst I agree that there are companies out there, that even, in the UK and the US that exhibit some of those things as well, especially these days, like when the money's all dried up as well, there's this idea that people are they're looking for revenue more than ever before. Like they're not just sitting there prepared to just sort of take the long view. They want to bring in revenue. They want to bring in money. And certainly if you're maybe private equity funded or you're bootstrapped or something like that say in the US or the UK, then there's going to be maybe more of an expectation for kind of continual returns rather than waiting and then maybe going big one day. So do you feel that, you mentioned funding yourself, like do you think that the funding model or like the startup funding model in places like Nigeria where maybe you have a different sort of set of investors, like how do you think that plays a part of the types of decisions that you might have to make as a product company in Nigeria and other markets, of the same kind of type?
I think as much as funding is important, you cannot throw money at the problem to solve it. And let's be very honest, the biggest problem is the markets and the spending power of the people. Now, look at Nigerian market, for example. How do you compete when half of people's money goes to food? Then if 50% of the income goes to food, then what service are you offering that's so important that's going to compete with transportation and healthcare? At the end of the day, so that's why people say, oh, Africa is obsessed with fintech. because financial services is an essential thing. Payment, you must pay. So it's not, and if you're going to build, you want to build for the largest markets, yes. You don't have the luxury of building a social media networking platform where you're able to sell data. Nobody's buying data on a large scale here to make it profitable. So even if you put a lot of money into the company, you cannot put a lot of money into the market who people are going to pay for the products or for the service that you're going to be offering. I'll give you, like, you've seen great people come with great ideas, yes, and very like interesting ideas, but they've thrown a lot of money to those products and they still not work. Now, and if you notice, there's a pattern. Most of these guys are either studied in the UK or the US, and they come here and they have that thought process. But if you understand how the Nigerian market works, you stick to building the essentials, because the African market is, unfortunately, we don't have the spending power of. You see things that you would see as leisure or things that you see as extras or miscellaneous do big numbers in the other markets where people that still trying to pay for transportation or even pay for regular things struggle. So, like I said, half of the money already goes to food. Then it's transportation and the other basics you need. So people spend less than 10% of their income on tech product or tech services. How then do you compete with 100 other startups in that space? So as much as it's a funding thing, yeah, probably maybe funding will give people more runway, maybe a lot of research. But your private equity is funding your money. They want their money back. They want revenue, yes. So at what point you start making money? Also, what about the Nigerian markets is, I'll probably use this Gen Z word and say, don't use them to a vibe you cannot maintain. Don't give them free services or premium services or like freemium services and then offer to charge later. We've seen people that have tried that and that not always worked. If you are going to charge revenue from the first day, you're paying for this product. If you try doing it free at first and then introducing revenue money later, you see how false numbers you've gotten. You see how much your market will probably shrink by, your users will probably shrink by 90%. Because people thought it was free. But now you're acting to pay for it is, let me give you a bit of context. Look at African music, for example. Artists don't have like shows more than once a year. Because how many times do people pay for tickets? In America, you can go on a countrywide tour. In UK, go on like a nationwide tour and sell several tickets. So it should speak to like the biggest issue is the market. So you understand what people would pay for and finding a niche in that space. I think you'd see product development or product management is very different.
So if I want to play that back slightly, I'd imagine then that what you're going to say is that this current trend that you see all over the place for advocating for product-led growth and, you know, as we sort of talking about freemium trials and upsells and stuff like that, I mean, are you saying that there are no companies out there succeeding with that model or just not very many? Is there like not really any pressure to do it? Like, is everything very sales-led? Like, what's the kind of the situation on the ground from a kind of a go-to-market perspective out there? Is it all about kind of sales-led or getting the money from the start? Or are there some companies out there that are kind of doing the product-led growth thing successfully?
So I think you can be sales-led and product-led at the same time. Remember that people would only pay for a product that solves their need. And that's what's interesting about building this kind of market. If you build in a market where we want them to pay for a product, it has to solve a problem. There's nothing more product-led than that. Yes. If you make money in this market, you have to solve a pressing problem. I mean, you have to find the pressing problem, solve it better than everybody else in the market. And that's the thing. It brings like, you solve very difficult problems. Then we have issues around like, fraud and identity management and compliance and the rest of them. And then speak about regulations, which is, I feel like we're a strangely regulated market than most other places. Try when you look at the factors like, you have regulations that you know when they're going to change. You can play a part in this conversation. We wake up tomorrow and there's a secular change in everything. So I feel like African product managers don't get enough credit for how the terrain you'd get to build in. You solve for the people that can pay the least amount of money. You work in a space that is weirdly regulated and without structure. And you still have to make product decisions and then back them up with data in a space where data is very, very scarce. So it's not like we're not product led, but sometimes you have to share the extras and focus on what makes money. So you have to solve the problem, but you also have to make money. You have to make them pay for what you're solving.
So how does this then, like on a day-to-day level, like you're working in product, you're doing product management things on a day-to-day basis. You want to make the best decisions that you can for your product and for your company. Like on a day-to-day basis, like do you feel that your role is just very different to maybe what some of these thought leaders are describing, or is it kind of the same but with a few little variances? Like day-to-day, how do you feel that product management works? Like maybe in your role or just generally with product managers, in your neck of the woods?
So in my side of the market, yeah, the easiest way to make more money is if you're solving one problem for one person, meaning they can pay for it, yes, look for multiple ways to solve different problems for them. So you see a product like, look at payment gateways, for example. You start payment gateways, then you have virtual accounts, then you have USSD payment, then you do vast solutions because this customer has proven they can't pay for the product, they have the market for it. Now let us milk as many income streams as we can because it's easier to make multiple streams of income from one paying customer than to go look for another paying customer out there. Because again, they already have something like brand equity and trust to what you do. So that's why I said most of these podcasts are great. I listen to a lot of them. It's like almost a ritual for every product manager, yes. But then you listen to many things that are said and you're like, you're speaking from a place of privilege and luxury. You're speaking from a place where you have users where you're very honest, yeah, when you're part of the world where people can spend $10 or £10 just to test the product for the first time, to just see if they like it or not, and they won't come back again. You don't have that privilege here. You don't. Nobody is spending the equivalent of $10 on a product just to see if it works. They must know it solves their problem before they drop. So yeah, so things like free, you see how it's a very different landscape. So that being said, what my day-to-day is market research. And that's another thing. If you build in this space, your product development doesn't start from ideation. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about product management. It doesn't start from ideation. You don't have the luxury of ideation and going to go and validate your idea for two things. That's an expensive journey that you probably cannot afford. Secondly, most times you end up with confirmation bias. Because if you're so stuck on an idea sometimes, maybe it's ego, maybe it's pride, maybe it's a conviction of what you know. One thing about data is it will always tell you what you want to hear. And then you see people going off on data and then confirmation bias sets in, then you end up building a product based on what you've seen or what you think to be true. And then you don't have that privilege around here. So most times product development starts from market research and finding gaps in the market. Let me give one example. Somewhere where I used to work, we used to accept payment for businesses. They realized that schools were not coming on board. Then the question was, if we have this many schools, why are they always falling off at the point of integration? The solution was schools didn't have enough resources to employ developers. So when you send them APIs to integrate to their websites, they're not going to pay developers that cost, yes? So how then do we get to collect money? Because schools are like easy money. People pay school fees 3 times a year. And most of the population, one like 6% of the population is young. Yes. So when that happens, how then do we make money for them? We had to build a product where they don't need to write code. They just open an Excel sheet of all their students and their school fees. And then we provide payment links specified for every school. That way, upload an Excel sheet and we get money easier than getting a developer integrating APIs. That's how product development works around here. You find loopholes in the market and you solve for them. You couldn't go for an idea product managers especially product managers in my field here. It's very sad. I'm going to share some numbers, but they're very sad. More than half of the nation, more than half of the country earns less than the equivalent of $100 a year. A month, sorry. So you see and if I do in my end like way more than that because of what I do, I am not the typical user. So if I am then going off an ideation, I have a requirement. I'm solving my problem. How many people have my problem or will pay for my problem? So so you need to see things very differently. So you get to how the market and the resources you have to work with, the time you have to do things. And for all of what the Nigerian market has, they've done some very impressive things. We have instant transfer, we have instant money, like money moves from one bank account to another bank in like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So they've done things that make things go faster. But when you read in acknowledge the part that it's a different market. So that's why I speak for things like community-based learning, where product managers who have gotten like senior or mid-level should speak more to the other generation. Because when you go do product school or product dive and the rest of them, do they really speak to what you do in the market? Then interview comes and then you begin to say the same things you've heard over and over again, and then you find yourself in that same place. So yeah, that's it.
Well, I was going to say though, because product dive is an African. I mean, I think it's Nigerian, right? It's an African community or African education platform. Like, do you feel that they're basically telling the same stories as some of the, say, American and European sort of education schools, or do you think that their offering is specifically adapted to the African market?
Oh, you're mad for me. They're very bad position. Now, all respect to product dive and what they've done for the markets, and I genuinely respect what they've brought out and the people that they've been able to like teach into the space. But I think because they have to lean into Western organizations for certifications, their curriculum is not entirely designed by them. And that's what happens because we have to like, you design the curriculums, yes, for them, because for them to be certified, they have to prove that they're going to teach these things. So I feel like I've seen the courses, I've done a bunch of them. I don't think it entirely translates, to be very honest. I think they could teach a lot more practical things about the day-to-days that affect, yeah. And then again, this is no, like they're doing a great job for people that do not know about this space. But I think if you've worked in this space to then transition to a professional in this level, I don't think they do it much because they don't get to design their curriculum by themselves.
But then I start to think about, I mean, if we think about American product education, like you think about people like Marty Kagan, you know, very, very at the top of the tree, SVPG, do a lot of work, obviously written the books, do a lot of, you know, Marty and the team do a lot of education. I know they did the Inspire Africa conference a little while back as well, where they kind of came out to, I don't know exactly where they ran it, but like they came out to, you know, kind of support the general African product management market and community. Do you feel that these are good signs that maybe companies are coming out, or like thought leaders are coming out and kind of trying to immerse themselves a little bit into the local markets and try to inspire them on the ground? Or do you feel that this is just more kind of external importing of things that you don't feel necessarily going to be the things that are going to work for you?
So many people might disagree, but this is an opinion, and I'll give an example. There's something about the Nigerian market, and it's more of a cultural thing. And I'll give you two examples. There's a Netflix approach and the Prime approach. When Netflix came to the Nigerian market, they went straight to gatekeepers. The thing about gatekeepers is they keep these things in their circle. They went more for pedigree and not for the work people have done, your CV and the things you have to, and who you know. Now, ask anybody, the quality of Nigerian Netflix movies, storytelling is terrible. Because it's the same group of people who are giving themselves the same. Now, look at the Prime approach. Prime went directly for talent and for great storytelling, and Prime has made excellent movies. So that's the thing about it. When they come, I get it. Because when you're like, for example, you know nobody in the country, you want to reach out to people that have like the biggest influence or the biggest audiences. What happens most time is they gatekeep how it works. So you go to guys, you're probably more comfortable with people that did their masters in the UK or went to schools in America. Those are people they usually go to. And then that space has like a lot of gatekeeping involved. I feel like we speak to people who actually work in fintech day to day now, not just posting on the internet for like, you won't see me typing most of those like tech talks. If you actually work in the Nigerian tech market and you're as busy as you think, as you should be, you don't have time to put most of this posture on the internet. So it's actually hard for like for folks to just do the work to get access to these people and not speak to them because, there's an embarrassing amount of gatekeeping involved. And we're very like, the culture is different around here. I'll just leave that at that. So the effort is good. I'm not sure about how it's being done, but then how else would you have them do it? Yes. So that's what the issue is. It's about how the gatekeeping works and people actually doing the day-to-day building. Most of people that talk on tech or people management in like on social media spaces are probably not built anything in this space in like 2 years or 3 years. So yeah.
Well, there's a hot take, but what's the solution? And I mean, I know you've spoken about the differences in your local market and, you know, maybe how some of this stuff doesn't translate and, you know, this need for more local understanding and more kind of contextual understanding. So like, where should people in Nigeria, for example, where should they go to get their inspiration or to be kind of like, if they don't know what they don't know, like where should they go to find out what they do know?
Now, the easiest way, but also one of the hardest things to do is look for people who work in the space that you can guarantee and have worked for companies. You go to my LinkedIn, I've worked for like two of the biggest guys in Nigerian fintech on an infrastructure level. So I know people in my space and my level, but don't just look at people that have 100,000 followers on Twitter or that have 1,000 likes on LinkedIn. Look at their profile. Look at where they've worked, how many years they've worked, and what they've done there, and reach out. I know I currently speak to like over 6-7 people every week in like batches of tutus, and I try to like is your way of paying it forward. When I started, most of the people that were doing product management in Nigeria were people that just come back from UK or wanted to work in tech without technical skills. There's a lot of different space now. The barrier to entry is a lot higher now, come like I can't add anybody else again now. Like my hands are full, yeah. But like I know people who speak to those people. People like Funaya, who's doing a great job in putting other people on, who's organizing like community-based 0 to 1 p.m. or 1 to 10 p.m. classes. Those are the best ways. Speak to people that are currently building this space. Yeah.
So bottoms up community efforts and speak to the people that have actually done it in the local market rather than people that have, people that have never been to the local market like me, or just people that haven't worked in that market for a while. But if people want to find you and talk to you after this, maybe you can be one of their inspirational mentors. Where can they find you?
My LinkedIn is Boluwaji Alepaye. That's linkedin.com/in/Boluwaji. I'm on Twitter sometimes, but Twitter is more my playground than about product. I don't speak much of products on the internet, to be fair. I just share my thoughts in calls and in classes, and that's it. You just and I think for people who should go to tech events and speak to people. Speak to people in this space. Speak to people that are building stuff. That's how you learn. That's how you move fast. And in a space like Nigeria or Africa, where data is very, very classified, try and look for and work with people that data is available. It's just very hard to reach. Yeah.
Well, I'll make sure to link you into the show notes, and hopefully people will take some of your advice and go and get out there and start speaking to the right people. But all I can do for now is thank you very much for your hot take.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. This was good.